Hey guys, my name's Chris. I'm the owner of CrossFit Bridge City, and I want to take some time and just kind of go over my story of how I got into fitness and what I'm doing here and why I do this for a living. I've been in business for 9 years. I've been passionate about diet and exercise for a long time, and it's a lot more than just a job to me, and it has had a huge effect on my personal life and just me in general. So I want to take a few minutes to just go over that with you guys. So a couple things. When I was 18 months old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That's where you're completely insulin dependent. You give your own shots. This was in the mid to late 80s, so it was a pretty challenging deal. And had to learn how to test my blood sugar, give 3 insulin shots a day, and basically while I was a toddler, my mom showed me how to do this, and it was a part of my life. Back then, you were kind of told in the 80s and 90s that with diabetes, you're going to have limitations. Examples, you can't go to the military, you might have some restrictions in working out and exercise in general, because working out and exercise makes your blood sugar drop. So that was our understanding back then of how things are going to work and how my life the next 15, 20, 30 years. But as I went through growing up through a teen and a child and stuff like that, I learned that that wasn't necessarily the case. So a little bit about that. I remember going to my endocrinologist for one of my appointments when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And the doctor said, you can have as many carbohydrates or eat whatever you want to, you just have to give the appropriate amount of insulin for it. And even as a kid, I remember thinking, okay, well that sounds easy enough. So that's exactly what I did. So the doctor said to do, and that's what I was going to follow. That's the prescription I was going to follow. I started doing that, and my blood sugars were not great, but they were not terrible either. They were just kind of okay from ages probably 4 to 12 or so. And during that time, I still played sports. Played soccer, played baseball, played basketball a little bit. You know, I was an average athlete, but you know, I enjoyed playing those things. And my mom would take me to practice and stuff like that. And you know, I'd have occasional low blood sugar here or there and treat it with a big glass of orange juice and a cookie, or back then it was half of a soda, you know, in order to get the sugar in that I needed to get my blood sugar up. More towards my teen years, it was like a Powerade or a Gatorade or something like that. But basically, sugar, straight sugar, like the doctor told me. You can have whatever you want to get your blood sugar up, and you just give the appropriate insulin to get it down when it's time to get the blood sugar down. Once I got into high school and sports became a little bit more competitive, you know, I noticed running with my blood sugars an average number, not great, not terrible, but an average blood sugar, and it affected my performance. You know, I was a fairly skilled basketball player, but as far as conditioning and on the court, I was one of the least conditioned, least fit people. And I think my diet and my blood sugars and my lifestyle as a teenager really reflected that. So I didn't realize it then, but looking back on it now, I can see that eating a pizza and giving a blood sugar and giving an insulin shot for it that would cover those carbohydrates for me didn't necessarily mean that what I was doing was healthy and productive for my body, my joints, my energy level, my production. But you know, as a kid, I remember hearing that from the doctor and thinking as a teenager, well, cool, that means I guess that's the bonus to having diabetes, is I'll get to eat whatever I want, give a shot for it, and I'll be perfectly fine. You know, that's my lucky draw out of being a diabetic. I get to eat whatever I want and I won't be overweight. You know? Little did I know that just because you're not overweight doesn't mean that you weren't unhealthy. So fast forward the clock a little bit later, you know, high school sports are over. I get into college and I'm playing rec basketball and just kind of generally working out with my friends and stuff like that. But it's not a big focus. You know, a big focus is getting done with school. And, you know, as you know, you've been through 4 or 5 years of school. Food kind of takes a back seat in college. You know, they call it the freshman 15. Mine was more like the bachelor 15. I gained 15 pounds, 15 pounds over the course of my college years, and continued to not have great blood sugars, but not have terrible blood sugars, but somewhere in between, just okay care of my diabetes. right around 22 or 23, my best friend Neil opened up a gym in Beaumont, CrossFit Beaumont. Shout out to CrossFit Beaumont. You guys are awesome. You guys helped really kick this off for me and start where I had a lot of realizations about my health and fitness. And that was such a cool place and cool time. You know, he opened up a gym and was like, hey man, come help me set stuff up, come work out and have fun with it. And, you know, help with building the community and letting more people come in. And started doing that, was really enjoying the workouts, and it was neat because I got to enjoy working out again, unlike college, which wasn't really fun. It was like almost like a job. I had to go in and work out. So I got to start enjoying workout with my friends again. I liked that. I saw some health benefits from it. My aesthetics changed a little bit. You know, I felt a little bit better, had more energy. But about 6 months in, one of my friends that worked out there had done an 8-week paleo challenge. And he showed me the before and after pictures of his body, and I'm like, this is incredible. I can't believe, you know, he was doing the same workouts I was, but because he was eating differently, his body basically transformed, you know, overnight, if you want to say that. Really, it was about 8 weeks or so, but substantial difference. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to start doing that. So basically, I took exactly what he started to do, or what he did for 8 weeks, and made it my own. And you can watch over the next 3 months for me as I progress. I got leaner body fat, my shoulders became a little bit broader, I felt better, I had way more energy, and I noticed I needed less and less insulin for my type 1 diabetes, and that was just the coolest thing to me. I was like, okay, I have to give less of this medication that I have to have. By the end of the 12 weeks, it ended up being about 40% less insulin, and when I went to the doctor, we did all my lab work and my meds, and or my labs, and my blood pressure was fine, which that's the first time I've had good blood pressure in probably 5 years. I mean, I was on blood pressure medication in my 20s because of having diabetes for so many years. That was not handled great. It wasn't handled poorly, but it wasn't handled great. And so from that point on, I didn't need blood pressure medication. Lab results were substantially better. My A1C, which is like your average blood sugar over the course of 3 months, had gone down about 40 points, which was, that hadn't happened since I was 12. You know, my blood sugar hadn't been that low of an A1C in 10 years or so. Well, at that point, I remember talking to the doctor, and the doctor still said, you can eat whatever you want and just give a shot for it. And I thought to myself, well, that's not what just happened the last 12 weeks. You know, I've been doing that for 10 years and my blood sugars have been stabilized at this okay range. And as soon as I started eating better, I saw this big dip and my blood sugars were at this really, really good range. Not perfect, but a lot better, substantial improvement. And the only metric that really changed was my diet. Yes, you could argue working out, but I was also working out 6 months before I changed the diet. So I think it was pretty obvious that the diet had some effect on it. And then I came to another realization. I thought, well, if the doctor's telling me this, either he's lying or they don't know this, that food helps this much. And of course, he's a great doctor, so there's nothing, he wasn't lying to me. But I realized that there's a gap. There are professionals out there that do not know about how effective food and exercise can be. So at that point, I'm about a year into being at CrossFit Beaumont, and I had gotten my level 1 CrossFit certification and started coaching people a little bit. I was coaching 1 day a week or so for Neil at CrossFit Beaumont, and really just enjoying it. It was more about passion. It wasn't about making money or anything like that. Liked helping people, liked spreading the word of what I call the magic pill. The magic pill is diet and exercise, and that's been our motto for years now. Sharing that with people and training them every day, or once a week or so. And at that point, Neil came to me with an opportunity for a boot camp that was across town, and I jumped on it. I said, okay, let's go do this. Well, in order to do that at the time, I had a job that I was working out. It was a major corporate structure, and every day I was going in and I felt like I was selling stuff to people that they don't need or want or has value for them, in most cases, not all, and I hated it. I really didn't enjoy what I did. So I took a plunge and I jumped from my job to running a boot camp, and the boot camp started out with maybe 40 to 50 people or so, and it was going okay. You know, I was making a little bit of money doing that, and enough to pay the bills for the most part, but I was getting to fulfill my passion. You know, I was doing 4 or 5 classes a day, had 4 or 5 people in them, sometimes 10, depending on which class it was, and I got to work with them on exercise just religiously all the time. The one area I never really got to work with them because it was so focused around the exercise was the food part, and I felt like that was the most valuable piece. So fast forward the clock a little bit later, on November 11th at 11 a.m. At 2011, I signed the lease for CrossFit Bridge City. You see it up there, it says Bridge City 2011 in Texas. And that's when we started, I opened an affiliate and opened CrossFit Bridge City. From there, we've grown, you know, and learned tons of things along the way. The main thing that I really wanted to do as a mission when I opened up my gym was, okay, I know this stuff about food and exercise. I want to get it across to people, but I want to spend that time investing in education and getting better at this and how to apply it. Because it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to help people actually put this in their lives. Because what I was finding out the first year or two of having CrossFit Bridge City was that people, we got the information out to them. We do these nutrition challenges, you know, we'd have paperwork for them that showed how to eat and stuff like that when they first came into the gym, but only maybe 5 to 10% of people were really employing that food aspect as well as the diet. And these two go hand in hand. They really make a difference in your life when you do them together. So over the next 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, I changed my business model a little bit where we do a lot of personal training, a lot of one-on-one stuff up front. And then we go in and we individualize diet for everybody because we found that that's the hardest thing based on people's schedules, their allergies, their preferences, how to get someone to eat better, and not just for 2 or 3 months, but for a lifetime. So the next, about 2014, 2015, myself and my staff started investing a lot of money. I got my level 2 certification in CrossFit, which didn't really go over food that much. Then I got my level 3, which went over extensively on nutrition, whether it be paleo or the zone diet or some sort of counting of macronutrients. And that was the big takeaway that I had from that, was not only do you need to eat quality, but you have to have these quantities measured out for people. So for myself personally, I had been eating paleo for about 2011, 2012, and right around 2013, 14, I started trying to measure how much potatoes, how much vegetables, how much protein, and where it falls in between. That morphed into the precision nutrition method, and I love their method because if you've never used this before, here's an easy 20-second deal you can use to know if you're eating the right proportions of really clean, healthy food. And it goes like this. For any person, you use your fists, that's how much protein that you get. You use your palm, fill that palm up, that's how much carbohydrate you get. Use your thumb, that's how much fat you get. And that is the case for every meal throughout the day. Of course, there's snacks, there's protein shakes, there's other things involved. So that's not a one size fits all method for everybody on how to eat well, but it does cover a lot of the basis on how much of the quality food to eat. And I started adopting that method right around 2014, 2015. I've continued to do that. I've dabbled with measuring my calories and stuff like that, but for me, I found I got the results I wanted as far as being lean, feel good, and get my average blood sugar down and be healthy just by doing the fist or the hand method that Precision Nutrition talks about. There are other clients in this gym that take the palm method and they take it up a notch. They count the total calories. Then they time their nutrients throughout the day. And myself and the rest of the coaches work with people here on how to do that. It all depends on what level you're at, where you're starting from with food, and where you're trying to go, right? So, but like I said, my big mission is to have every member at our gym understand how important food is, as well as exercise, and then make sure that the food and the exercise are something that takes them into longevity, not just for a year or 2, not 5, but something they can do in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that's been my experience. This is, it's been about 8 or 9 years now. It's been an interesting road. There's been tons of ups and downs. I've learned a lot along the way. I know a big part of that for me is being open to change and knowing that whatever you are doing right now, there's always a next step, and pursuing that next step, and not in order to master it, but just to progress towards it. So that's my story. Thanks for listening.